You're live on DSTV, channel 421, Go TV 144. This is Joy News Prime with me, Anas Mino. Coming up in this package, police in the Upper West region point to foul play in the alleged murder of the 26-year-old immigration officer at Hamle border as it begins to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death of the officer.
Careful inspection of the body, it was found that there were punctures at the back of the deceased, which clearly suggests a foul play.
We'll bring you details of the police preliminary investigations. Also here on Joy News Prime, the latest reports by Education and Child Rights NGO Challenging Heights reveal what it describes as a worsened and deteriorating fee-paying situation in most public basic schools in the country.
And in public basic schools are being forced to pay levies to cover desk, teachers' motivation, admission fees, even when there are no electricity or computers in those schools.
We have more as they urge government to release funds to settle the over 300 million cedi of capitation grants in areas. Also coming up, woes of some residents in Accra set to deepen as the Ghana Water Company prepares to ration water following the shutdown of the Wager treatment plant. We have details as it emerged that consumers owe the water company in excess of 2 million cedis in the Upper West region.
The bill is about 630,000 Ghana cedis, but the people of Upper West, for private consumers alone, they owe over 2 million Ghana.
Also in this package, the minority in Parliament demands the immediate scrapping of the COVID-19 testing at the Kotoka International Airport, insisting fees for the testing is designed to shortchange travelers entering the country.
We are of the view that the issue of testing at the port, especially Frontier Healthcare, must be completely scrapped.
At 8 p.m, Charles will come your way with Prime Business. Charles, what should we look forward to?
Well, tonight calls intensify for government to hold a national debate on how investment from oil revenues are being maximized.
My position is on this is that we keep the Heritage Fund as is, but let's change the quality of the investment instruments so that we can get better returns on it.
Oreku then takes over at 8:30 p.m. with Prime Sports.
We'll be talking about Sami Kufuor, who would be mentioning why he believes the Black Stars have a psychological advantage over Nigeria, although the Nigerians have the quality.
Psychologically, we had an advantage. They can have the big stars, but in this case, when you look at on paper, they are much better than us, player to player. But when you look into the details of Ghana, Nigeria, the history, we are ahead of them. So we will take that advantage on them.
Psychological advantage. We'll find out with Oreku later on Prime Sports. This is the home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Stay with us. Hello again, thanks for choosing us. We begin from the Upper West region, where police say they suspect foul play in the alleged murder of the 26-year-old immigration officer who died at Hamle in the border town. Michael Otto, an immigration officer, was found dead at the border town of Hamle in the northern region. The family said they have not been only devastated by the news, but also how they received it. Joy News' Wolanyo Frank Nyonato visited the family and has come through with the following report.
This morning, we are in the deceased home to speak to the family as to how they got the information. Before we came here as a news team, we gathered that the family are yet to be formally informed by the service, but they got to know about the death of their relation, 24-year-old Michael Otu, on social media. This morning we are here, and let me tell viewers that we got here and the emotions here are not the best, but we've managed to get an uncle who is prepared to speak to us, and so I'll be moving in there and then try and then see what he would be able to tell us about what actually happened and then how they got a news of the demise of their son. Ofampacho, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
This morning, Joy News, we are in the home of Michael Eko Otu, who is a 24-year-old Ghana Immigration Service personnel who yesterday was shot dead by unknown assailants on the border town called Hamlet. Wafamacho kakra na ya ansani edikan ya bisa mpacho efrose.
The frame kwesi appear imprim.
Mpacho woni hwan.
Many afraban na papa pinyin.
Na yenyantie se mo ba ne afimu na sen na munya information no.
Okay. Yenya under the bay around 9:20 nim. And I was from there. Me ba parko. We say how? Why then we? And I was say I'm the we shooting. Why then we shooting? It's only in the immigration. Into why then we shooting? But yante she yada anapi and I yat in one social media for and I was it to platform do na yehuni today. What's it? Wakui Juma. I'm the Wakui Juma. Nti Juma no be shooting. Nti yaba a bit safe in one pain if Nankasa, when in pain for na wahan. Yaba bit see one in on a yaba try air train today and go on baba and a yachts in summer. What the baba and a queen of fado movie.
Na if he and run abc anope no Mwankasa so munye mumfa kwan bia so se mu ne empanifo no bi ebekasa since asem no mote asem isi.
Okay. Oya no kwar yat ye hu mpanyinfo ya frɛ panyin kwar. Onankasa ne boss ya friend ma oso rokuhia mpanyinfo no okuhia urihia ana wona aba. Nti mde mbrobe dem bia wobaba na yate bibi afa yana ba ne wu no.
Michael, no, nipa ube ono nipa ben say abefra de oni moneti ansa na okọ join Ghana Immigration Service no na oye nipa ben ube ni suban te sen.
Michael ono no enokwa Michael de oye nipa bia ne hojo pa na ono so oye jovia chede ne yigene ho obi biara owo bia. Nti ono de onpe basabasa na ope no kre so ono ope no kre obi bia oye ope no kre nti za mi mo no ho oye obi a obre no ho aze obi biara yem na obre no ho aze ofie bibia onyi pen onye na kasa obre no ho aze mu tede oye abofra bia obu aze pa onye nyipe bia oye basabasa nti na ne wu ne sesi onye ye hu kwan ofa do ankasa ma wokun nti kire mpanyinfo no ba na wobakire ne mu tede dam no usi
na mo bisase ahobrase mu na esi samu hu information no social media so no mo adwen fa de mo hu social media so no eno so ne sen.
Okay nse won the what to do nti ehunu na chede adwen asai because ono no afana ngasa onpe no ho asama da masam yesi adwena ye find I didn't yeah twin painful say woba na say work.
Now, police in the Upper West region have already begun investigations into the death. The Upper West Regional Crime Officer of the Police Service, Reynolds Mantiao, in an exclusive interview with Joy News, called for public support to track the suspected killers.
Yesterday, that we had information from Hamile Police that around 14:30 hours, one of the immigration officer called Apia reported to the police that one of their own, the immigration officer's whereabouts, could not be found the previous day, and that they had just gotten information that they've seen the lifeless body of the deceased officer, who is called Michael Otu, in Culvert along the Hamile Kokobligu Road. So they came to report, and we detailed police officers to the scene. And lo and behold, when police got there, the police found that the lifeless body of the officer had been kept in a culvert. And so when it was retrieved from the culvert, and you realized that the uniform, that is the immigration uniform he was wearing, was soaked in blood. Also found at the scene was his ballistic helmet and also the jungle cap that he used to wear. They were found about 39 meters away from where the body was found. Again, some 69 meters away from where the body was found was his motorbike, an Absonic motorbike which he was using. And so all these items were retrieved, and the body also retrieved from the culvert, currently deposited at the St. Teresa's Hospital morgue at Nando. But on a careful inspection of the body, it was found that there were punctures at the back of the deceased, which clearly suggests a foul play. For now, I will not be in a position to tell whether they were gunshots or they were pierces from sharp implements. Maybe after the coroner's autopsy, we'll be able to tell whether they were gunshots or they were wounds from a sharp implement. But for now, investigation is being carried out rigorously. Well, we've assured them to be calm, but generally there is no much cause for alarm. The area is calm. Even the personnel, their morale is still high. They know it's an unfortunate incident, which with time they will definitely overcome it. But for now, there is no cause for alarm for anybody to be apprehensive of what has happened. The people have been assured that the security will be intensified, and they should assist the police in volunteering information that will lead to the arrest of these criminals.
Away from security, let's turn our attention to education now. And the latest report by the Education and Child Rights NGO Challenging Heights review what it describes as a deteriorating fee-paying situation in most public basic schools in Ghana. The organization said it interviewed heads of basic schools in 5 out of 16 regions and in 25 districts within those selected regions. The results showed that children in public basic schools were being forced to pay levies to cover desks, teachers' motivation, admission fees, printing fees, PTA dues, development levy, and ICT, among others. Challenging Heights is calling on government to urgently settle the over 300 million capitation grants in arrears across the country. Richard Kochinyako reports.
The capitation grant was introduced in the 2003-2004 academic year to offer free, compulsory, universal basic education for all school-going children of Ghana in fulfillment of Article 25(1)(a) of Ghana's 1992 Constitution, which states that basic education shall be free, compulsory, and available to all. The capitation grant scheme was therefore introduced to replace all fees paid by parents in public basic schools in order to expand access and to support school performance improvement effort by the schools. In this regard, government paid all the fees which were supposed to have been paid by the children in public basic schools. CEO of Challenging Heights, James Kofi Annan, says while commending government for increasing the capitation grant from 4 cedis 50 pesos to 10 cedis per child per term, they believe that the delays in the release of the funds diminishes the intended impact of the grants.
Challenging Heights report interviewed heads of basic schools in 5 out of the 16 regions in Ghana and in 25 districts within those selected regions. The results show that children in public basic schools are being forced to pay levies to cover desk, teachers' motivation, admission fees, printing fees, PTA dues, development levy, ICT fees, even when there are no electricity or computers in those schools. Specifically, the results revealed that at the preschool level, some parents are paying minimum 459.5 pesos. That's 459 cedis, 50 pesos, and a maximum of 1,000 Ghana cedis per academic year. The JSS level analysis revealed that parents could be paying a minimum of 330 Ghana cedis and a maximum of 2,000 Ghana cedis per academic year. It is
James Kofi Annan is thus calling on government to pay the capitation fees for the heads of the basic schools to run the schools effectively.
It is understandable that when the heads of these basic schools are in financial distress, the only immediate remedy is to fall on the parents of the children to bail them out of the situation. Hence, the charging of these hidden and unapproved fees in those basic schools. This completely defeats the original intentions for the introduction of the capitation grant. And we therefore call on government to immediately clear all arrears, all basic schools, to enable the schools operate efficiently, even as government takes steps to review some of its policies. We support B-STEM education in principle. And challenging height, we are for B-STEM. However, the free compulsory universal basic education is already suffering financially. There is therefore no guarantee that the far more financially demanding B-STEM education can be sustained under our present circumstances.
The organization is also asking government to suspend the introduction of the B-STEM education. They say even though they support the B-STEM education in principle, the free compulsory basic education is already suffering financially. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejenya Akon, Cape Coast.
Let's do some more on this. Let's speak to the Deputy Ranking Member on the Education Committee of Parliament, Dr. Clement Park. Quite a disturbing revelation there. Has this come to your attention at the committee level?
Well, first of all, let me say good evening and to say good evening to viewers. As a committee, this has not come to our attention. But as the minority side of the committee, we have raised this issue of the arrears in terms of the capitation grants. We have made the case that the inability or refusal of government to do the needful as required by law, which is to ensure that the basic schools get their capitation grants so that effective teaching and learning can go on, is a call that we have made time without number. So this does not come to a surprise to me or the members of the minority on the Education Committee. As we speak, schools are going to be going on vacation on the 7th of next month. Not only have they not received the capitation grant, many of the heads of the basic schools, as a result, have had to borrow and sometimes take loans to procure things as basic as chalk, registers, to undertake minor maintenance. So the situation as has been captured by, I believe, basic heights, clearly is a revelation that all is not well as far as basic education in the country is concerned. And that should be of worry to every Ghanaian and every Ghanaian parent.
Dr. Park, since you're very much aware of the issues at the basic level, which has been raised in this report, I'm wondering if you have any response from the ministry or its agency, the Ghana Education Service, on this.
Well, we have filed questions. I have authored a number of articles on the challenges facing our educational system, including basic schools. In fact, I raised the issue that the government owed 4 tranches of capitation grant. I raised the issue of the continued lack of textbooks for our basic schools 3 years after the introduction of the new curriculum. We raised issues around the fact that there are many basic schools that don't have KGs. There are many primary schools that don't have junior high schools, and a host lot of others. But I think what is more revealing, as the report captures, is the fact that it is now even more expensive for parents to get the awards through basic school compared to senior high school.
Dr. Park, kindly hold the line for me. James Kofi Annan, who is president of Challenging Heights, joins us via Zoom with some more on this. And Dr. Park, I return to you on what we can expect from the committee on this going forward. But Mr. Annan, you conducted this research. Give us some more detail in terms of the regions and the districts you visited and how worse the situation is.
Thank you very much, and my greetings to your viewers. So Challenging Heights basically sought to know how the capitation grant is impacting on school children in our public schools. And this is based off of research that was previously done by another organization. So we set out to, we selected 5 regions out of the 16 regions.
Okay.
And the regions were Bono East, Central Region, Eastern Region, Greater Accra Region, Volta Region. Then out of each of the regions that we selected, we went ahead to select 5 districts from each. And those districts that we selected were Ablekuma South, Ablekuma West, Adan East, Adan West, Akati South, Akim East, Akim West, Akebuwa Mountain, Brim Central, Brim South, Central Town, Efutu, Ekumfi, Gomoa East, Gomoa West, Ketu North, Ningo Pram, North Town.
So 25 East. In all, 25
yes,
districts.
So 25 in all. Now, what we wanted to find out was whether or not the capitation grant was still working, and that the main goal of this policy was being achieved. And what are the main goals? That children whose parents could not afford to pay fees will go to school without paying anything, without paying any fees. Yeah. Now, we were shocked to realize that in a lot of the schools that we went to, the children were paying more than some of the private schools in the neighborhoods.
And more importantly, did your research find that as a result of the fee-paying system that exists, admissions have been affected in the schools? Enrollment, for instance, had been affected as a result? Did you find that?
Yeah, definitely. You know, one of the items that we did not include in the research was to find if enrollment had been affected. But as a consequence of the report, research, we realized that almost all the headmasters and headmistresses were telling us that whenever the children came to school and they asked for money and they could not provide, they went home and never returned. So that indicated to us that then there's a school dropout. We have a situation on our hands where we have school dropout as a result of the failing of the capitation grant.
Very well.
Very well. Then spoke volumes because, you know, we are having increases in child labor situation and child trafficking situation in the last few years.
Yeah.
And we conclude that it may be as a consequence of the failings of the capitation grant. Because children are being asked to buy their own desk. They are being asked to pay admission fees, pay something for examination fees, to the extent that some of the children are being asked to sort of bring items that even in the private schools they were not being asked to bring, including
Mr. Annan, we'll have to leave it here because of time, but I'm grateful that you could join us. Dr. Park is with us on the line. Doc, should we expect you to haul before the committee or the House, the Education Ministry, to respond to these issues?
Well, yes, we have been making attempts to get the minister to come to Parliament and address us on the myriad of challenges debilitating effective teaching and learning, generally, from kindergarten all the way to the university. And in fact, this is yet another reason why that call is justified. I would like to see the full report by Challenging Heights, I believe that is the name of the institution. But what I can say is that it is now becoming clear that the over-concentration and focus on the secondary school level is leading to a neglect with regards to what we need to provide to ensure that effective teaching and learning goes on at the basic level. And what is even more frightening, given the narration by the CEO of the organization, is that parents are having to expend more money to get the awards through basic school.
Mr. Park, I'm grateful for your time. School. Thank you very much for joining us. That's the Deputy Ranking Member on the Education Committee of Parliament, Dr. Clement Apagden. Let me say that we did reach out to the Education Ministry for some response on this. We do not have it. They've indicated that this has been forwarded to GES to respond to it, and once they're ready, they'll bring us their response. Away from that, but still on education, former chairman of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, Dr. Stephen Mantiao, is questioning government's continuous use of oil money to fund free SHS program. Since its inception in 2017, government has spent 7.6 billion cedis on the program, 3.44 billion cedis, representing 45.24%, came from the annual budget funding, that's ABFA, of petroleum revenue. There's a current debate on whether to review the free SHS due to the current economic difficulties facing the country. But speaking at a public lecture organized by PIAC to review the 10-year of management of the use of petroleum revenues, Dr. Stephen Mantiao insists that government ought to invest the petroleum revenues in other ventures and use the proceeds from there to fund programs like free SHS.
The uneducated market woman at Mokola, who has had no education in economics, will tell you that nobody lives on his or her capital. Capital is meant to be invested, and you live off the dividends from investments. Let us as a country begin to realize that our natural resources and the revenues derived from them are our capital. We need to, as a country, invest this capital and then live off the dividends from the investments. And that is the way, in my view, to sustainably finance national programs such as the free SHS. For instance, under the previous government, we invested $30 million of oil revenue in Kotoka Terminal 3 through the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. That money today is worth $37 million. So assuming that you had an arrangement to invest the capital, that $7 million will be the returns, and that is what you put into a fund, okay, to finance free SHS, so that beyond the depletion of oil, there will still be money invested to finance free SHS sustainably.
But in a sharp rebuttal, General Manager in charge of Sustainability and Stakeholder Relations at the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, Dr. Kwame Banyako, says spending on education itself is an investment and disagrees that using oil revenues to fund free SHS is not prudent.
There's an argument about whether education expenditure is consumption or whether it's investment. Where have we, you hear, let's invest in education. Do you hear anybody say, let's consume education? Hello, let's be honest with ourselves. Yes, government decided to use the money for a specific project. That's why I said I don't want to go into the free SHS thing. But if we are doing a pure economic debate, the returns on education is in the region of 24 to 36%, depending on whether it's on primary education or it's on tertiary education. We can have an economic argument around that. And so if you, instead of using the money, invest on education, you decide to put it in a heritage fund, for the same generation that you are depriving them of education, you are putting money in the heritage fund, it gets us only a return of 2% to 3%. I'm saying as an economist, it doesn't tell me that you are getting value for money. And so maybe I'd rather take the money and invest. There's fiscal infrastructure as a way of investment. There's human resource way of investment. And there's heritage fund. These are all investment opportunities, isn't it? We need to choose the one that gives us the maximum returns. And because if we invest in the education, we're actually investing in the future generation.
Meanwhile, petroleum economist and political risk analyst Dr. Theo Champon, who delivered a lecture on the 10 years of management and use of petroleum revenue, says Ghanaians are yet to feel the impact of the resource in their life despite the huge expectation.
Impact has been fairly negligible, and also is due to the fact that there was a lot of enthusiasm and hype, right, around the petroleum resources, that suddenly oil and gas is going to change the economic fortunes of Ghana around. Tell you what, 10 years down the line, we haven't really seen that, and it's really because the revenues have not been substantial enough, because the production is just around 200,000 barrels a day, as we speak, between 190 to 200,000. And if you really want that to have a big impact, you need big production volume. So the take-home point really is that we need more production to generate more revenue, and then we also need to improve the revenue management framework, particularly when it comes to the bit that we give to the finance ministry to spend within the budget. That's how you'll be able to see some sort of impact.
And finally, what about the issue people have raised about companies like GNPC? I mean, using money for patronage and the likes. What comments?
Yeah, we discussed that. The issue of GNPC is an interesting one, but remember that they are a creature of law, and the law gives literally the president and the appointing authority, just like with many of the SOEs, power to hire and fire and all of that. So as much as there are question marks around, we call it the quasi-fiscal expenditure of GNPC, like giving money for power guarantees and likes, we have to fundamentally go and change the.
You're watching Joy News Prime here on the Joy News channel. Let's do some other stories now. The woes of some residents here in Accra is set to deepen following the shutdown of the Weija treatment plant. A statement released by the Ghana Water Company says this to allow the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, carry out expansion works at some of the stations and the one that powers the Weija raw water pumping station. This comes at a time when many areas in the capital are struggling with water supply, with some experiencing some rationing already. So which areas will be affected? Let's go to the statement. It says management of the Ghana Water Company Limited wishes to inform its valued customers and the general public that the Weija headworks will be temporarily shut down on Wednesday, 23rd March 2022, following a request by the Electricity Company of Ghana Limited to carry out expansion works at one of the stations that powers the Weija raw water pumping station. It continues to say that this will allow the Ghana Water Company, the Electricity Company of Ghana, actually carry out this, expansion works, and it doesn't state when exactly this will be dealt with. But let's go and get some more information on Zoom with Stanley Mate, who is the Communications Director of the Ghana Water Company. Mr. Mate, I'm grateful for your time here on Joy News. Your statement indicates that this will start today, but when does it end?
Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity. The Electricity Company of Ghana requested for 10 hours shut down to enable them to do the expansion works. Now, because we were not actually in charge of the job, we were not too sure whether they'll be able to complete within the 10 hours. So we made it open. But it was just supposed to be for 10 hours. And thankfully, the job is completed. They have given us the information. So we have started pumping. Now, when we go off, we don't just start pumping and water will get to every part of the city.
Okay.
So what is going to happen is we are going to start one pump over a period, and then we continue with the second pump, and then the final pump, which is the third one. Okay, so let's give ourselves, let's say 6 hours, and then we are sure that water will get to every part of the metropolis.
So within 6 hours,
it wasn't really GWCL's situation. It was for ECG, or to enable ECG do their expansion works. For us, our equipments are functioning. There's no problem with any of our equipment. Everything is intact. They have just informed us that they are done with the job. So treatment begins in the next few minutes.
So and within 6 hours, you're saying we can expect that water supply will be restored to all these areas that were listed to be affected?
Exactly. At least from within 6 hours, a lot more areas will start getting water. And then by close of day tomorrow, we are sure to have this western part of Accra stabilized in terms of water supply.
Beyond this operation, for the other areas in parts of the country that are already having water issues, or what's the update you can give us? Any rationing happening anywhere or soon that people should prepare for?
We still haven't had rains in most parts of the country. So with areas where the water source dried up, we still have those challenges. So we are using other means in serving them. So the rationing is still ongoing. We haven't stopped the rationing in most of these areas. It is still ongoing. And this is to enable us to have an even distribution of the little water in the system. So we expect consumers to bear with us whilst we try to solve the problem. And we also pray that we are going to have rains, early rains, so that some of these things will cease. But at the moment, the situation hasn't changed much. We are hoping for the best in the very near future.
When the rain sets in, we often see spillage of some of the dams. How are you preparing for that in case we have an overflow?
Yes, if we have an overflow, we still will spill because we need to safeguard the integrity of the dam. That is more important. Now, what we have in the Weija Dam or in the dams where we store our water is enough to take us through the period. For instance, in Weija, it is enough to take us through the year.
Okay.
In some areas, it is not. But then, because we need to safeguard the integrity of the dam, it's important that the excess water is built off. Other than that, we are going to lose the dam entirely, and the situation will be more terrible.
Mr. Marty, thank you for your time. He's the Director of Communications for the Ghana Water Company. Meanwhile, it's emerged that in the Upper West region, consumers owe the water company in excess of 2 million Ghana cedis. The chief manager of the water company, the Serena Kwachiminta, who revealed this, said they have mapped out strategies to help recover the debt. Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
World Water Day since 1993 has been celebrated each year to raise awareness of the 2 billion people in the world who are without access to safe water. In the Upper West region, the day was marked by the Upper West region's office of the Ghana Water Company Limited with the commissioning of the One North District Office at Walsombo. Ghana Water Company Limited Chief Manager Serena Kwachiminta noted that the opening of the office will not only reduce congestion at the main office, but will ease the burden of their customers in seeking for their services as well. She further noted that water is one of the most important natural resources on earth for sustaining the human life.
If you look at the water resources we have, 99% is the oceans and glaciers. Fresh water is just 1%, and out of the 1% of the fresh water, 90% is groundwater. So by our actions and inactions, we should not pollute our groundwater, we should not produce even our surface water. Our surface water is gradually dwindling, so we should make sure we protect our groundwater.
She however considered that despite the importance of the community, there are several unhealthy practices which increases the cost of production and thereby poses as a threat to having access to groundwater. She therefore calls for behavioral change and the need to ensure that water used is paid for in order for the company to meet the increasing consumer demand.
A lot of people take water for granted. Oh, water is a natural gift from God, water is a resource. But then, before the water comes to you, there are various processes that involve the use of energy, the use of chemicals to transmit the water to you. So, indeed, it's very important that when you get this service, you pay for it in order for us to expand and also make our payment obligations to our energy producers, our chemical suppliers, and also the pipes we even get to lay. In order to get the pipes to your home, we make payments for them. Over my head, yes, over 2 million Ghana cedis, yes. Our monthly bill is about 630,000 Ghana cedis, but the people of Upper West, for private consumers alone, they owe over 2 million Ghana cedis.
A member of the board of the Ghana Water Company Limited, Ampofo Chumase, expressed worry over the continuous destruction of economic trees and water bodies, which he warned, if not stopped, could pose a danger for the country in the near future.
We are all witnesses to what is happening to our water bodies. Very disheartening, very discouraging, very costly to us all. Our education, our steps, our support in fighting these dangerous, inimical activities of human beings must be supported and actively involved to bring such things to an end.
Upper West Regional Director of the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, Atokwansa, was also not happy with community burials.
Go to a very typical community and they have buried people around the entire enclave of the community. We will simply propose that we have a very defined area where we bury our loved ones, so that at all times we will know that this area has been delineated for this purpose, so we don't confuse ourselves drilling borehole for an entire community and we are rather giving problematic water.
Reporting for the news, Rafik Salam. Wow.
And we have more on water for you because Sachet Water has taken over pipe water as the main source of drinking water for households in Ghana. And that's according to the data contained in the 2021 Population and Housing Census. To help break this down for us, we have the figures for you. Kofi Eji of our research desk joins us. Kofi, that is quite disturbing. How is that?
Right, so Ernesto, before we go to the 2021 Population and Housing Census, let me give you a background. So we start with the 2010 Population and Housing Census, and then if you look at the sources of drinking water, we have at least 5. So we have pipe-borne water, borehole, sachet, surface water, and rainwater and others. So the surface water, we can talk about the rivers, the streams.
Yeah. So, and we had then that report, the manager saying that surface water is actually
is dwindling. Yeah. So if you look at pipe-borne water, it was the #1 source of drinking water for most Ghanaians, so households in Ghana. So 46.5%, and borehole was the second with 29.1%. And look at sachet water. The next slide, you see a difference. Sachet water was was actually the fourth with 9.4%. Now, if you look at pipe-borne water, it means that if you sample 10 households in Ghana as of 2010, close to 5 of them were using water from pipe-borne as the main source of drinking water. Now let's move to the next slide, which talks about the 2021 figures. So this is actually the 2021 figures. So we look at sachet water now, overtaking pipe-borne to become the first. The main source of drinking water for most households in Ghana. So 37.7% of households sampled during the 2021 Population and Housing Census used sachet water as the main source of drinking water, followed by pipe-borne water, 31.7%. Borehole now, is now #3, 17.7%. Surface water, 6.4%. Protected wellspring, that is protected and wellspring, that is 3.0%. Bottled water. So you realize that in the 2010 census, sachet water was paired with bottled water. Now, you know, demand has increased, supply has also increased, accessibility and then purchasing power has also increased. So you mean that we've separated bottled water from
and just for clarity,
water.
this is the 2020.
This is the 2021.
21
exactly,
and not the 2010.
No, not the 2010.
What we showed you the previous slide was the 2010.
So this is actually the 2021 figures contained the 2021 population and housing census. So now let's move to the next slide, which breaks it. So we actually selected the 6 most the prominent ones. So we talk about sachet water, pipe-borne, borehole, surface water, and protected water. Let's do urban-rural analysis. So you realize that on the national scale, so you realize that the source of drinking water was, in terms of sachet water, was 37.4%.
Okay.
Now, if you move from the national scale to urban areas, you realize that most of them depend on sachet water as the main source of drinking water. So
and that's not surprising.
Exactly.
In our homes. Well, I don't remember the last time I drank from the pipe.
Sure, yeah. But the next slide will also tell you that, you know, in some rural areas, so just this one as well, you see that in rural areas, they are not really dependent on sachet water as the main source of drinking water. So from 37.4 on the national scale to 51.5 on the urban scale to dwindling 15.8% in the rural. So you can just look at it, the boreholes, the surface water, and then other things. So the next one talks about, you know, water must be treated and then protected.
Okay.
So we are talking about whether the water people are drinking is improved or unimproved. So if you look at on a national scale, we have about 92% of all our drinking water sources we have being protected, and just 8% not being protected. Protected, I mean that it is being protected from contamination. So you realize that in the Greater Accra region, 98.3% of the drinking water we have in the Greater Accra region is protected. Just 1.7% is not protected. But if you scale this down to other regions, looking at the northern region, OT, Northeast and Savannah, you could see that the gap is widening.
It's widening.
Exactly. So in the Savannah region, for instance, we have just 70.5% of the drinking source of water being protected, and then just almost 30% not protected.
And
so
Kofi, obviously, the stories we tell corroborate this data that you brought us today. Thank you very much for bringing us, that data from the 2021 housing census. You're watching Joy News Prime with me, Anas Mini. We're taking a break. When we return, we'll bring you some more stories. Don't go away. Thanks for staying with us here on Joy News Prime. The ranking member on the Health Committee of Parliament, Kwabena Mintah Kando, is demanding the immediate scrapping of the COVID-19 testing at the Kotoka International Airport. The Joboso MP alleges the charges and fees for the testing is designed to shortchange travelers entering the country, insisting the positive cases recorded at the airport has hugely declined due to the rigorous testing passengers go through before boarding a flight. He's been speaking to parliamentary correspondent Kwesi Parker-Wilson.
We have turned this COVID pandemic into a cash cow. Within the sub-region, there is no country that charges $150 per an antigen test, not a PCR test. You understand? If you go to countries like, Togo, Burkina Faso, Togo is charging $50. Burkina Faso is charging $50. So why are we charging $150 from, people, non-citizens of Ghana? You understand? There's one very important question that we must all ask ourselves. You know that before you arrive in Ghana, you have to get a negative PCR test. Okay. So if somebody has a negative PCR test, why should he take an antigen test to verify a PCR test? So you ask yourself, was this carefully cooked for somebody just to make money out of it? And remember the procurement of this health care services at the airport, the frontier issue. It's a whole make situation. So we are of the view that the issue of testing at the port, especially Frontier Healthcare, must be completely scrapped. I don't think that, I think it has outlived its usefulness.
So we should stop the testing at the Kotoka International Airport, is that what you're saying?
You know, if you check the data, okay, from 2020 to 2022, and this is science backed by the data, the positivity rate from the Kotoka International Airport is 0.9%. The positivity rate. In fact,
so it is through a fraud test
before they get here.
Before they get in the country.
Because without the negative PCR test, no airline will carry you.
Right.
Now, tomorrow, the finance minister is expected in Parliament to respond to a number of questions and later address the nation on austerity measures adopted by government to stem the current economic tide. MPs have been speaking to Joy News on their expectations.
We expect huge cost cutting, and it must start from such areas where you have appointees who have no role, no productive role. Everybody who has been appointed who is not playing any productive role must go.
Some expenditure cuts has to happen, and I just don't want to speculate. The free SHS should not be touched. I think government can look at other areas. I don't think free SHS should be touched at all. That is my candid opinion.
He's not coming to Parliament to meet us. He's only coming to make declarations. So how was Parliament consulted? How was the judiciary consulted? How was CSOs consulted? Industry, the financial subsector, labor union.
We should all brace for punitive measures. I heard him saying here that he's going to announce things that will cushion anybody. What cushion are you talking about? If he comes and takes off some of the taxes on petroleum products, that would be good. But don't forget that we are already paying taxes that should be used to cushion us as part of what do you call it, the petroleum price stabilization levy, for instance. So there isn't much he's going to do. We are in a real fix. So we should all brace ourselves, provided the requirements he's bringing will not kill all of us, because already people are suffering. We are told cement is over 60 cedis in part of the country. How do you call it? Fuel, which used to be 4 cedis per litre, is now 10 cedis. I mean, exactly what is he going to say that anybody should be expecting? It's just going to be pain. But we hope that whatever he says, we can all be able to adjust.
That's it for Joy News Prime. Many thanks for your company. Please log on to myjoyonline.com. You'll find more stories there. I'm Ernest Mino. Up next is Prime Business with Charles Aite.